Hello everyone and welcome back to the lesson. Today we are going to discuss the constitutional provisions on governance and ethics in Kenya. By the end of this lesson, we should be able to discuss the constitutional provisions on governance and ethics in Kenya. And the Constitution of Kenya 2010 provides a comprehensive framework for governance and ethics, emphasizing principles such as transparency, integrity, and accountability. Today, we will study the key provisions, beginning with the chapter 6, leadership and integrity. Chapter 6 is the leadership and integrity. And this chapter outlines the principles of leadership and integrity of the state officers, including the ethical requirements for upholding public office. This chapter also establishes the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to enforce the principles in the chapter. Now, there are several articles under this chapter. Article 73 is all about responsibilities of leadership. And I read that authority is the authority assigned to a state officer. A is a public trust to be exercised in a manner that is consistent with the purposes and objects of this constitution. All right? Therefore, a public officer should demonstrate respect for the people. Then a public officer is required to bring honor to the nation and dignity to the office. That is responsibility of leadership. It goes on to read that a public officer should promote public confidence in the integrity of the office, and so on. That is Article 73. Then Article 74 is about oath of office of state officers. Article 75 is on the conduct of state officers. It reads that a state officer shall behave, whether in public and official life, whether in private life or in association with other persons, in a manner that avoids A, any conflict between personal interests and public or official duties, B, compromising any public or official interest in favor of personal interests, C, demeaning the office the officer holds. And it goes on to stipulate that a person who contravenes these clauses shall be subject to the applicable disciplinary procedure for the relevant office. That is Article 75. Then Article 76 talks about financial probity of state officers. Financial probity of state officers. Article 77 is about restriction on activities of the state officers. A full-time state officer shall not participate in any other gainful employment. It states that any appointed state officer shall not hold office in a political party. A retired officer who is receiving a pension from public funds shall not hold more than 2 concurrent remuneration positions as chairperson, director, or employee of a company owned or controlled by the state or a state organ, and so on. That is a restriction on activities. You can see, candidates, these are guidelines. These are constitutional provisions on governance and ethics. All right? Article 78 is about citizenship and leadership. The Constitution outlines a person who is not eligible for election or appointment to state office unless the person is a citizen. It gives directions on citizenship and leadership. Article 79 is about legislation to establish the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. That is Article 79 of this chapter states that Parliament shall enact legislation to establish an independent ethics and anti-corruption commission which shall be and have the status and powers of a commission under Chapter 15 for purposes of ensuring compliance with and enforcement of the provisions of this chapter. The chapter is on leadership and integrity. Then Article 80 is on legislation on leadership. Legislation on leadership. The Constitution states that Parliament shall enact legislation to establish procedures and mechanisms for effective administration of this chapter. B, prescribing the penalties in addition to the penalties referred in Article 75 that may be imposed for contravention of this chapter, and so on. So that is, candidates, the chapter on leadership and integrity. That is a constitutional provision on governance and ethics. That is chapter 6 of the Constitution. That is leadership and integrity. That is the chapter on leadership and integrity. All right. Then the second provision is Article 10 of the Constitution. Article 10 of the Constitution. Let me go to Article 10, and it is an important one. That is national values and principles of governance. National values and principles of governance. That is Article 10. Article 10, national values and principles of governance. This one is on national values and principles of governance. National values and principles of governance. Now, the national values and principles of governance in this article bind all state organs, state officers, public officers, and persons whenever and all persons whenever any of them A, applies or interprets this constitution, B, enacts, applies or interprets. So the national values and principles include: one is patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, and participation of people. The second principle is human rights, human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equity, non-discrimination, and protection of marginalized. Another principle is good governance, integrity, transparency, and accountability. Then we have sustainable development. These are national values and principles of governance. This article sets out the values and the principles that bind all state officers, that bind all state organs, public officers, and all persons in Kenya. And I've read these values include patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power, the rule of law, democracy, participation of the people, social justice, and protection of the marginalized. These are national values and principles of governance. And Candidates, we are discussing the constitutional provisions on governance and ethics. The second provision is Article 10 of the Constitution, which deals with national values and principles of governance. Then we have Article 200 and Article 232. This one deals with the values and principles of public service. 232. This is public service. Values and principles of public service. 232. The values and principles of public service include 1. A. High standards of professional ethics. B. Efficient, effective, and economic use of resources. C. Responsive, prompt, effective, and impartial and equitable provisions of service. D. Involvement of the people in the process of policy making. E. Accountability for administrative acts. F. Transparency and provision to the public of timely, accurate information. G. Subject to paragraph H and I, fair competition and merit as the basis of appointments and promotions. H. Representation of Kenya's diverse communities. I. Affording adequate and equal opportunities for appointment, training, and advancement at all levels of the public service, and so on. So those are the principles, values, and principles of public service. Those are the values and principles of public service. Now, all public servants are required to adhere to these principles. The article specifies the values and principles that guide the public service, including high standards of professional ethics, efficient use of resources, accountability, transparency, merit-based appointments and promotions, and so on. That is the third constitutional provision on governance and ethics. The fourth provision is to be found in chapter 15. Now, this chapter, I said this is chapter 15. Chapter 15 is on commissions and independent offices. Commissions and independent offices. This chapter establishes independent commissions and offices to promote good governance. And one of the relevant commission to what we are discussing today is the Anti-Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We have the Public Service Commission. We have the Commission on Administrative Justice. Those are the relevant commissions in as far as governance and ethics is concerned. Chapter 15 of the Constitution, it is on commissions and independent offices. The chapter establishes independent commissions and offices to promote good governance. To promote good governance. To promote what? Good governance, including the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Commission on Administrative Justice, and also the Public Service Commission. Then number 5, chapter 4, which is on the Bill of Rights. Chapter 4 is on Bill of Rights. Now, while not directly addressing governance and ethics, this chapter provides fundamental rights and freedoms that underpin a just and equitable society, including the right to equality, freedom from discrimination, and also the right to information. That is Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights. I read, the Bill of Rights is an integral part of Kenya's democratic state and is the framework for social, economic, and cultural policies. The purpose of recognizing and protecting human rights and fundamental freedoms is to preserve the dignity of individuals and communities, and to promote social justice and the realization of the potential of all human beings. We have the rights and fundamental freedoms in the Bill of Rights, which include um, rights belong to each and individual. The rights belong to each individual and are not granted by the state. The rights do not exclude other rights and fundamental freedoms not in the Bill of Rights, but recognized or conferred by law, except to the extent that they are inconsistent with the chapter. So there is Article 20, which deals with application of the Bill of Rights. Then we have the chapter on Article 21 on the implementation of rights and fundamental freedoms. Article 22 is on the enforcement of Bill of Rights. So the whole chapter is on Bill of Rights. So candidates, chapter 4 on Bill of Rights, I've said that it provides fundamental rights and freedoms that underpin a just and equitable society, and these rights are not granted by the state. Chapter 4 is a constitutional provision on governance and ethics. Then we need to mention 6, Article 1. Article 1. Article 1, we all know, candidates, establishes Kenya as a sovereign and democratic state that is founded on the values and principles of governance that we outlined in Article 10. Right? Article 1 establishes Kenya as a sovereign and democratic state. Sovereign and democratic state. The first article is sovereignty of the people. All sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this constitution. All power belongs to the people of Kenya. So the article establishes Kenya as a sovereign and democratic state that is founded on the values that we outlined in Article 10. Right? Outlined in Article 10. Then we ought to mention Article 201. Article 201 sets out principles for public finance, including openness, accountability in financial matters, and Article 201. Article 201, that is under Chapter 12. The following principles shall guide all aspects of public finance in the Republic. A, there shall be openness and accountability, including public participation in financial matters. B, the public finance system shall promote an equitable society, and in particular the burden of taxation shall be shared fairly. Revenue raised nationally shall be shared equitably among national and county governments. Expenditure shall promote the equitable development of the country, including by making special provision for marginalized groups and areas. C, the burdens and benefits of the use of resources and public borrowing shall be shared equitably between present and future generations. D, public money shall be used in a prudent and responsible way. And E, financial management shall be responsible and fiscal reporting shall be clear. These are principles of public finance. Article 201. These are principles of public finance. You understand? So, candidates, you can see the Constitution of Kenya provides a comprehensive framework. The Constitution of Kenya provides a comprehensive framework for promoting good governance and ethical conduct in the public sector. And these constitutional provisions, along with supporting legislation and codes of conduct, play a crucial role in ensuring transparency, accountability, and integrity in Kenyan governance. So it is important to know that what I've outlined here is not an exhaustive list. There are other provisions that may also be relevant depending on the specific context. So I've just highlighted 7 provisions from the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Now, I have to give you the assignment. I'll read the assignment on constitutional provisions on governance and ethics. 1. Which articles in the Kenyan Constitution specifically addresses the principles of leadership and integrity? 2. How does the Constitution define and promote national values and principles of governance? 3. What are the key values and principles outlined in the Constitution for the public service in Kenya? 4. How does the Constitution establish independent commissions and offices to promote good governance and ethics? 5. What role does the Bill of Rights play in upholding ethical standards and good governance in Kenya? That is your today's assignment. Make sure you do it. In our next session, we are going to discuss compliance strategy. Bye.